the Brussels effect. The Brussels effect, let's have a very quick check on the cover. It is a book, The Brussels Effect, How the European Union Rules the World. So I'm extremely happy to bring to the show the author of the book, Anna Bradford. She's also apart from author, she's also a law professor and expert in international trade law. Good morning, Anna, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Alexandra. Delighted to be here.
It is extremely interesting book and brings a lot of positive vibes when it comes to the EU. So first of all, I'll kick off with a very simple question. In your book, The Brussels Effect, you argue that Europe is in an influential superpower. Why do you think so? Because, you know, most of the people, most of the financial community doesn't think so.
So, Alexandra, I do invite a conversation of what power is and what it means today. And I argue that the EU is an influential superpower through its power to regulate the global marketplace. The regulations that emanate from Brussels are shaping the business environment across the world. Take example from data protection regulation from the EU, the GDPR. That has been adopted by companies like Facebook, or Google, or Microsoft, or Apple as their global norm for privacy. And over 100 countries around the world have also adopted domestic privacy regimes. And in doing so, they have used the European law as a template. And this is not just in the domain of privacy. It's the environmental laws, it's consumer protection laws. The laws from Brussels are being transposed across the world.
So you focus particularly on regulation, representing Europe as a global leader. So here is a quote: multinational companies use EU standards as global standards, and the EU's role as the world's regulator is likely to outlive its gradual economic decline, extending the EU's influence long into the future. Can you give us specific examples? Why is the EU a leader on a global scale in terms of regulation?
So, Alexandra, companies like uniformity. They don't want to customize their production to each jurisdiction separately. So because the EU is normally the place where the most demanding, stringent standards come from. So if the companies choose to convert their conduct and production to the EU standards, that often gives them access to the markets around the world. So the EU is one of the largest and wealthiest consumer markets in the world. And there are very few companies that can afford not to trade in the EU. So they do need to follow the EU regulations in the first place. And that often gives them the incentives then, based on scale economies and other benefits of uniform production, to extend those EU rules across their global production.
Well, that's a pretty interesting point. We're going to touch on it specifically when it comes to the Brexit. This was one of the major events for 2020 and also 2021, that's for sure. But first of all, I'd like to stick to the script and talk about the EU-US relations. You published your book in 2020. Back then, the President of the United States was, of course, Donald Trump. Many things has changed since then, though, because right now we have the Biden administration. You've been extremely vocal in regards to the Trump's isolation politics and isolation approach towards Europe. Has anything changed in your mind since the new administration came into power?
I think a lot has changed. And I argued that in many ways, by turning his back to globalization, President Trump was just trading globalization to Europeanization, because that gap in global governance left a vacuum that the European Union stepped in and was prepared to fill. But now we have President Biden. He's an internationalist. He's a transatlanticist, and is very willing to work with other parties. And even though in the book, I talk about the EU's deployment of unilateral regulatory power, the EU is also multinationalist at its heart and very willing to welcome the American corporation. So I think there are many policies in which the US and the EU today are quite aligned, whether it is fighting the climate change, whether it is reining in the big tech companies to regulate the digital economy. Those are some opportunities for cooperation. But let me mention, I don't think the Europeans can be at the mercy of American elections every 4 years. It is looking good now, but nobody knows how long this will last. So the Europeans need to be prepared to leave go and lead and be the regulator for the world when needed going forward as well.
Well, that's pretty interesting point. I'd like to get back very quickly to the Brexit point, which is also extremely interesting point considering the fact that we're in Italy, we are part of the EU. So you argue that UK companies have to abide by the EU law if they want to trade with the bloc, despite the Brexit. So can you talk to us about this point, and not only has anything changed again after the Brexit, I guess already about 5 months after the Brexit?
So the big false promise of the Brexit campaign was this idea that the UK could somehow gain regulatory sovereignty. It could unleash itself from the EU's bureaucracy. But if you think about how markets work, about 50% of the UK's trade is destined to the European Union. That is not going to dramatically change after Brexit. The UK companies still need to do business in the EU. And to do so, they need to follow the European rules. So if you are a British automobile manufacturer, do you then want to set up a second production line and produce different cars for the UK market that is 1/6 the size of your more important export market in the European Union? No, that is not in your interest. So in practice, even if the UK government was to declare regulatory sovereignty, the Brussels effect pushes the UK companies towards the European rules, even after Brexit.
So I was wondering, what's your view on the EU in the upcoming decade or maybe even 2 decades? Do you think this regulation, when it comes, for example, also to the tech companies, I'm just giving a random example, might be something extremely positive for the EU, or rather not?
I am very optimistic, and I think the EU has been ahead of the time in starting to regulate the big tech companies before the rest of the world realized the importance of doing so. And now we see even the conversation in the United States shifting. They are starting to come to the same conclusion that this sector needs to be regulated. Consumer privacy matters, competition matters. We cannot have facial recognition and other technologies in artificial intelligence that also go unregulated. So in many ways, I think the Europeans have been the visionary. They've been an ambitious regulator. And just in the last couple of months, they have outlined very ambitious proposals to regulate the artificial intelligence. We had the Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act, that really are going to set the standard of how this sector will evolve. So I am optimistic that the EU is on the right track. This is the one, a regulatory battle that is particularly consequential for the prosperity of Europe, for the innovation in Europe, but also then for the well-being of the citizens and the future of the liberal democracy in how we are setting up and governing these digital companies.
So, Anna Bradford, I just wanted to ask you whether the book is online already in Italy.
So I am very grateful that the Italian translation just came out. So we have an Italian version now available, published by Franco Angeli, and so it can be read in Italian.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anna Bradford, author and, of course, professor of law and expert in international trade law. Have a great day ahead.
Thanks for having me, Alexandra. Bye-bye.